Going back to Phelan's fight against Vicious, the War Angel is clearly surprised to see Phelan's weapons. She recognizes her sword as a mythical beast's, saying it's a drake's fang, and she's heard their power erupts through impact. The celestial race is skilled at creating such magic items, so it's only natural they'd know. Phelan mentions that even so, their lord is attempting to force slavery upon those very same celestials, so he must be quite arrogant. Vicious just calls her naive, saying that it's not something mere humans can fathom. In the meantime, Rini starts feeling exhausted during her fight against Raffaello. He admits that she's indeed a threat after receiving a few attacks from her, since she was able to pierce through his divine guard so easily. Rina calls him a liar though, saying that her attacks aren't working on him much at all. She hates how composed he is, saying that angels are all the same and they all look down on others. That's why even elves, fairies, and dwarves seem inferior to them. That observation makes him wonder what she is exactly, noticing she's strange-looking. Rina admits she doesn't know it herself, but she doesn't want to know either. She clarifies she doesn't need to know as long as Kai stays with her, and that's all that matters to her. Going back to Kai, he faces Alfaa, who announces that he will proceed with the execution of the Great Elder of the Elves. Ryren has a hard time as she remembers how kind he used to be, but she pushes those thoughts aside, speaking fiercely as she claims he has no right to lead the Celestials, promising to guide him to his grave. When she runs towards him, he uses his Magnificat magic, summoning a great sword that he throws directly at her. She's unable to react, but in just a second, Kai calls upon his code holder to stand in the way and destroy that projectile with one slash. Seeing that, Alfaa asks him if he's really a human, or an elf pretending to be one. Kai assures he's all human, so Alfaa mentions he fails to understand why a human would defend an elf. In response, Kai says there's nothing to understand, explaining that if something were to happen to Ryren, the elves would resent humans, so it just makes sense to help her. Alfaa clarifies that their existences are not the same, and if his judgment had been even a bit off, he would have been reduced to ashes along with Ryren. He also mentions that Kai's sword is not an ordinary weapon. Hearing that, Kai informs him that his sword was able to rival Vanessa, the demon hero, and her magic, so it has the potential to challenge him. Alfaa just starts laughing, amused to see how foolish of her it was to lose to a human. Kai then asks him if he's really in a position to call Vanessa a fool, since at least she wasn't trying to execute her own subordinates. Alfaa says that is for him to decide. After all, he's Heaven's Spire, the noblest and most brilliant star there is, so he has no desire to call anyone who would disobey him his subordinate. Jean mentions that's what she calls narrow-mindedness, before suddenly aiming an arrow at him with her powerful longbow of the moon. Alfaa protects himself in time with a barrier, but the arrow destroys it, and several projectiles are created that fly towards him, one of them even cutting his face. He immediately notices she used an elven bow, so he asks her if she truly understands what it means to wield an elven weapon with that body. Jean assures she thinks nothing of draining her own life away, and this takes Kai off guard, since he didn't know it had that complication. Before he can even ask anything, Jean cuts him off, saying that they'll talk later, and right now, they need to take down that angel. Alfaa then uses Magnificat again, this time using a bell that creates heavenly thunder, a huge ball of lighting that impacts directly on Jean. However, when he sees she's unharmed, Alfaa understands it's because of an elf's sacred light garment, something that can handle any magic, even if it is an attack from a hero. Alfaa says it is unforgivable for a human to use celestial items and wear elven garments, so he creates a magical circle even bigger than the last one, and a rain of lightning falls on them. This time, Ryren protects everyone with her magic of the 7 Princess Guardians, creating a strong barrier right above them. She says she refuses to be in debt to humans so many times, and Kai mentions that it'd be better if they could make it 4 against 1. Ryren immediately understands he means they need to get the Great Elder first, and she admits he seems to be pretty sharp for a human. She guides him towards the Great Elder, but Alfaa quickly tries to stop them using his Spear of Divine Punishment, which breaks right through Ryren's barrier. However, Kai reacts quickly and blocks the attack, saying that angels take humans too lightly. Ryren soon runs towards the Great Elder and tries to break the crystal, but the weapon she uses ends up destroyed, something she wasn't expecting at all, since she used one of the elven treasures, a casket that can seal away the Great Elder, who's second only to the heroes, a spear that can easily pierce through her barriers, a bell that summons thunder, and a baton that creates a red blade. Thinking about all of that, Ryren wonders how Alfaa is able to use all of these magic items at once. Even if he's a hero, he should be depleting a lot of magic, so she asks him what that power is, and if that power could be what caused him to suddenly change. Alfaa tells her she's wrong, clarifying this is a rapture, the joy of attaining a new subordinate to replace her. Just then, he introduces his new amenable subordinate, Last Riser. Going back to Rinna's fight against Raffaello, he connects several consecutive blows with his large warhammer, something that causes considerable damage. She complains about him sullying her wings, and the rage makes her go even more serious than before, landing a powerful blow right on his face, managing to tear through his armor. On the other hand, Phelan works as a team along Ashran and Saki to distract Vicious, which allows her to attack the angel from the back, aiming right at her wings. After all, her wings are the source of her magic and her greatest weakness. Phelan knows this thanks to a man who claims to come from another world, and Vicious has no other choice than to drop her weapon. Once we see Rini again, Raffaello encourages her to move ahead and make haste, saying that with her powers, she may be able to free the Great Elder. She asks him if he lost on purpose, and Raffaello dodges the question, saying that since the day when Lord Alfrea first changed, Vicious and he persevered and waited for this moment. We then see Vicious also encouraging everyone to go, asking Phelan to apologize on her behalf to her old friends, the Great Elder and Ryren. Phelan bluntly says she doesn't care, since she certainly took her lightly by clashing blades with her instead of flying. She has no intention of finishing off anyone who wasn't being serious, so if she wants to apologize, she better take them up to where the others are. Returning to the main battle, Alfrea orders Riser to attack, and this mysterious being out of nowhere creates a powerful shockwave towards them. Jean is unable to resist and is thrown into the air, but they see that she is okay, and from the air she shoots an arrow at Riser, though it has no effect at all. We then see that she was actually saved by Rin, who arrived just in time, and Jean thanks her for that. She also says that once the battle is over, she'll have her and Kai explain in detail, referring to Rina's wings, which are a clear sign she's not human. Rina accepts that with a smile, but when they go back with the others, Alfrea asks what that awful mixed being is. Ignoring that question, Rini mentions to Kai the fact that Alfrea has a last riser at his side. For that reason, Kai asks Alfrea if he is the one behind the world reincarnation, but seeing that he doesn't know what he is referring to, he assumes that he has no idea. This makes him wonder what's really going on, since Vanessa did know about it. He then asks him if he knows about the prophet Sid, and this time, that name does create a reaction in Alfrea. He starts losing his composure, saying that he received something from that human. Before he can provide any proper response, Last Riser grabs him by the neck, announcing the observation of unexpected fluctuations from the hero of the Celestials, influence from the taboo word, Sid. Riser executes Zero Code, removing Alfrea's code from the world, initiating hero overwrite. Unlike Vanessa, this time Alfrea is erased by Riser's portal, leaving only his magical items on the ground. Everyone is confused, not having any idea of what just happened, but Kai knows it's the same thing that happened before with Vanessa. Before they know it, Last Riser disappears through a portal, which makes them think everything's over. However, just then, a new Alfrea shows up, displaying wings of a completely different color, and having the same eye as Last Riser. He introduces himself as Alfrea, his avatar, and initiates memories as the hero of the Celestials. Just after this, he creates a strong windstorm, but Rinna is still thinking about the words avatar and overwrite. This caught Kai's attention, and it made him remember these last moments with his Jean before being teleported. At that instant, he could hear a voice saying that the world reincarnation had been activated, and the overwriting of the world was being executed. He mentions that back then, it was overwriting the world, and now it's overwriting the hero. This new Alfrea claims that only he is of importance, and only he exists within the heavens. Therefore, everything else must be incinerated. Ryren stares at him with worry, since she still cares for the Alfrea she once knew. He suddenly uses his Magnificat magic, asking his lord to cleave their wings, cast them to earth, and weep. Rinna blocks the attack, but her barrier cracks and breaks in seconds, creating an explosion that makes them suffer the impact from the attack. Kai managed to cover them for the most part, luckily, and this allows Ryren to realize that Alfrea just used magic without channeling it through magic items. Alfrea claims this is the work of the heavens, his powers as the shining star. Ryren tries to reason with him, imploring him to wake up, and saying that he's only being delusional. After all, his wings are crying, and he's not enhancing his strength, he's chipping away at his life. Celestials take pride in their magic items, but he's forgotten that and takes delight in using magic without them, and that's something to be ashamed of as a Celestial. Alfrea tries to silence her with an attack, but Ryren uses a stronger barrier to protect herself this time, aligning all guardian princesses. As she does this, she mentions no matter how strong it may be, a single use of magic is no match for her 7 princess guardians. Despite this, Alfrea calls upon Magnificat again, using the divine gift of the king's sword, an attack that breaks through all her barriers until finally getting to her. Ryren has a hard time believing what's going on, but just before her life is taken, Kai intervenes, clashing swords with Alfrea. He tells him Ryren really looked up to him, and somewhere in her heart, she had faith in his return. Alfaa says that is laughable, since he has no intention of going along with a weakling's fantasies. This clearly upsets Kai, who says that if he were the one that Ryren respected, he would never say such things. He now understands that he is not the person Ryren adores, nor the leader of the celestial race. He is just a mere imitation reproducing the hero's powers. Ryren and Jean are a little stunned, surprised to see Kai acting that way against Alfaa. On the other hand, Rinne remains unconscious on the ground for having received most of the damage to Alfrea's previous blow to protect the others. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, then subscribe to support the channel. Comment the word Riser to prove that you stayed till the end, since not a lot of people do.